Hello, welcome to EasyLearn 360. Today's topic is about skeletal muscle, the structure and organization. So please watch my previous video on muscular system, where we have discussed the different types of muscles, that is the skeletal, cardiac and smooth muscle, the basic differences between these three, and the functions and properties are also explained in that video. Please watch that video. Coming to this is about skeletal muscles in detail. So we will discuss what is skeletal muscle made up of, so that we can study about how the skeletal muscle works. The skeletal muscles are the muscles which are attached to a bone with the help of a connective tissue called tendons. So this is a diagrammatic representation. This is a bone, and this is a muscle, skeletal muscle. It is attached to the bone with a strong connective tissue called tendon. Now this muscle, we are talking about this particular region, that is a muscle. Each muscle, they are made up of a long fiber called, a long mature fiber called muscle fibers. So thousands of muscle fibers form the muscles. So muscle fibers, they are single long cylindrical structure. It is surrounded by a connective tissue. So 10 to 100 muscle fibers form a bundle called fascicle. And these bundles of fascicle form the muscles. And each of these structure, they are surrounded by a connective tissue sheath. And the whole muscle connective tissue, the all of these connective tissues, they are in continuous with the tendon, which in turn helps in the attachment to the bone. So if this is the bone, here is the tendon, and here comes the muscle. And if I am taking the section of this muscle, I will see a bundles of fascicles. So this will be covered. The whole muscle. This is covered by a connective tissue, and this is in continuous with this tendon. And these bundles are called fascicles. So when I take one single fascicle, the single fascicle contains many muscle fibers. And each fascicle in between, they are having connective tissue, and each muscle fiber is also covered by connective tissue. So when we can say the organization of muscle tissue, how can we say? The muscle fibers form bundles of fascicles, and bundles of fascicles form muscles. And all the connective tissue of these muscle continues with the tendon, and tendon will connect to the bone. Now, from where these muscle fibers are originated? Muscle fibers, these are all developed during the embryonic period from undifferentiated cells called myoblast. So these are undifferentiated cells which specialize into muscle fibers, and which in turn develop into fascicles, not develop, it forms the fascicles and which forms the muscles. So this myoblast, almost all of the myoblasts differentiate into muscle fibers before birth itself. Only very few myoblasts persist after the birth, and they are called satellite cells. And these satellite cells are very few in the mature skeletal system. So the regeneration of a mature skeletal system is very difficult because only very few satellite cells are persisting after birth. So if there is any damage, the muscle fibers take a long time to get regenerated, and that also the chances are very less. Each muscle is composed of thousands of muscle cells called muscle fibers, which are arranged parallel to one another. And a mature muscle fiber is a long cylindrical structure. Its diameter ranges from 10 to 100 micrometers, and the length that is typically about 10 centimeter, although some muscle fibers are long as 30 centimeters. And it is surrounded by a connective tissue. So 10 to 100 muscle fibers form a bundle called fascicle, which is again surrounded by a connective tissue. And the bundles of fascicles together form the muscle. The connective tissue surrounds the muscle itself, and all of the connective tissue of muscle are continuous with its tendon. A tendon is a cord of connective tissue that attaches the muscle to the bone. Muscle fibers are developed during the embryonic period from myoblast. A few myoblasts do persist in mature skeletal muscle cells as satellite cells. They retain the capacity to regenerate. So next, let us see the structure of a muscle fiber. As you find in a single cell, muscle fiber also has a plasma membrane, nucleus. Actually, there are many nuclei, then mitochondria, and other organelles similar to a cell. So the plasma membrane, usually in every cell, the plasma membrane will be continuous like this. But in case of a muscle fiber, they have invaginations of the plasma membrane. Invagination means there will be a small furrowing of the plasma membrane towards the center of the muscle fiber. So it will be like this. There will be small invaginations, and these invaginations are called transverse tubules, and there are thousands of tiny invaginations of throughout the sarcolemma. So what is the purpose of this tubules or transverse tubules is that it plays an important role in transmission of the action potential throughout the muscle cell. So this is a muscle cell or a muscle fiber. So the action potential or membrane potential when it reaches the muscle cell, it will become membrane potential or muscle action potential, and it will reach here, and there will be a releasing of calcium ions and the muscle movement occurs. So for the transmission, easy and quick transmission of these muscle action potential throughout the entire muscle fiber, this tiny invaginations are a must. So this is a diagrammatic representation of a muscle fiber. The plasma membrane of a muscle fiber, it is known as sarcolemma. The word sarco meaning flesh. So flesh or muscle. So sarcolemma. The cytoplasm. The cytoplasm of the muscle fiber, it is known as sarcoplasm. And similar to all cells, they have nuclei. The cells have nuclei, but here it is multinucleated, and all the nuclei are just near to the plasma membrane or sarcolemma. And this tiny invagination, they are called the transverse tubules. Transverse tubules. And here this is the in cytoplasm, or we can say that this is the intracellular fluid, and these are the invagination. That means these areas, they are filled with extracellular fluid. So since this invagination, so extracellular fluid, they are more into have more contact with the surface area of the sarcolemma, so the exchange of ions is very fast. That's why the membrane reaction potential is spreading so quickly. So these invaginations are very important for the transmission of action potentials. Only when the action potential reach the muscle cell will get the initiation to contract, and that initiation is caused by the release of calcium ions from the sarcoplasmic reticulum. So, like the endoplasmic reticulum of a cell, here also they have sarcoplasmic reticulum. And the terminal end of sarcoplasmic reticulum, these are more on over the surface of the cell, and it is near to the and the sarcoplasmic reticulum, they are dilated over here like this over both sides of the T tubules, and this is called these dilated ends of the sarcoplasmic reticulum called terminal cisternae. They are the lateral sacs. They butt against the T tubules from both sides. And these transverse tubules and the two terminal cisternae, these form a triad. And this is very important because this terminal cisternae of sarcoplasmic reticulum, they contains the calcium ions. So sarcoplasmic reticulum stores the calcium ions. So whenever there is an action potential which is reaching the surface, this calcium ion will be released here. And this calcium release of calcium ions will cause a chain of reactions, which in turn will cause the myofibrils inside this cell to contract and relax. So the another structure inside the cell is called myofibrils. These are microfilaments. These are the microfilaments, or we can say that these are the contractile elements of the skeletal muscle fibers, myofibrils. There are two types of myofibrils in a muscle cell. They are thick and thin filaments. And these are arranged in such a way that the arrangement, the single unit or of arrangement of thick and thin filaments are called sarcomere. So a myofibril means it is a combination of many sarcomeres. So the single unit of myofibril is sarcomere. So we can say many repeating units of sarcomere forms the myofibrils. Myofibrils, they form the muscle fibers, and many muscle fibers form the fascicles, and many fascicles form the muscles. So the real contractive units are the myofibrils, and the repeating units of the myofibrils is the sarcomere. Sarcomere is the a particular arrangement of thick and thin filaments. So these are the structures. Other structures within the cytoplasm are mitochondria. As usual, mitochondria, they are the powerhouse of the cell. They are concerned with the production of ATP. Mitochondria. So what are the other things which are necessary for the production of energy, because mitochondria, they require oxygen and as well as the glucose. So only in the blood cells we have hemoglobin, which carries the oxygen. But other than hemoglobin, myoglobin, it is less like hemoglobin. These are red colored oxygen binding proteins found only in the skeletal muscles. They are found only in the skeletal muscles, and they stores oxygen. So these are myoglobin molecules. These are oxygen binding proteins which stores oxygen for the production of ATP, because skeletal muscle has to contract, and for that contraction large amount of ATP is required. So the skeletal muscle, they have their own myoglobins which bind the oxygen for their need. And another thing is important thing for the ATP production is glycogen. So they have glycogen storing molecules also. So these are the glycogen storing molecules. Glycogen is a stored form of glucose. So these are the main structure, the main structure of a muscle fiber. So a muscle fiber, the plasma membrane is called sarcolemma. They have tiny invaginations called transverse tubules, have nuclei beneath the plasma membrane or sarcolemma. The cytoplasm is called sarcoplasm, and the endoplasmic reticulum, the terminal cisternae of endoplasmic reticulum, they butt against the T tubules and they store calcium ions. And the terminal cisternae, this transverse tubule, and again the terminal cisternae, these form the triad, which is important in the initiation of the contraction of the muscle fiber. The contractile element of a muscle fiber, they are the myofibrils. Myofibril consist of thick and thin filaments. They are arranged in such a manner that it is called sarcomere. So sarcomere is the contractile unit of a muscle fiber, the repeating units of sarcomere. So sarcomeres combine together to form the myofibrils. Another the organelle found in the muscle fiber is mitochondria. This production is used for the production of ATP for muscle contraction, and then glycogen molecules, a storage form of glucose, and then myoglobin molecules. These are red colored oxygen binding proteins found only in the plasma membrane which stores oxygen. So in the next video, we will be discussing about the sarcomere, how this thick and thin filaments are arranged in a sarcomere, and we will also discuss about the proteins in this myofibrils. So these are the notes for these topic just I have discussed. The structure of a muscle fiber, the plasma membrane is called the sarcolemma. Multiple nuclei located just beneath the plasma membrane or sarcolemma. T tubules, they are the invaginations called transverse tubules. Then in the cytoplasm is called sarcoplasm. It contains mitochondria, glycogen molecules, myoglobin molecules, and the myofibrils. And thick and thin filaments are arranged in compartments called sarcomeres, which are the repeating units of a myofibril. Sarcoplasmic reticulum, the dilated end of sarcoplasmic reticulum called the terminal cisternae, but against the T tubules from both sides, and these form a triad, and release of calcium ions from the sarcoplasmic reticulum triggers the muscle contraction. So in the next video, I will discuss more about the sarcomere and the proteins in the myofibrils. So in this video, we discussed about the skeletal muscle and the structure of the skeletal muscle and the skeletal muscle fiber. If you like this video, please like, share and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.